Well, joining us now for more on this from Columbia, Maryland, in the United States via Skype is Associate Professor of Communications at Morgan State University, Jared Ball. Mr. Ball, thank you so much for being on Al-Jazeera. There are a lot of people who don't agree with this move to put Harriet Tubman's face on a $20 bill. Donald Trump, for instance, says it's an act of pure political correctness. What's your opinion of this?
Well, I would agree that there should be a lot of criticism over the use of her symbol. I think that Harriet Tubman is, on the one hand, a brilliant representation of a liberation struggle in this country that is still ongoing and unfinished and deserves all the credit and respect in the world. I just think that it should come differently and in the form of the improvement of material conditions for those who continue to suffer the legacy that she fought so mightily to overthrow.
Right.
We're reminded that slavery is still legal in this country under the 13th Amendment. It just requires first a conviction for a crime, and this is why we see so much of slavery's legacy playing out in mass incarceration and police violence against black people in this country, and why many in the city of Baltimore, where I work, refer to it as Tubman City in reference to the idea that there is an ongoing struggle for black freedom and liberation and equality in this country that is yet realized. And that's where I think where I come down on the critique that this is not necessarily about political correctness, as Donald Trump is saying, but it's certainly an attempt to misuse or misappropriate or appropriate a symbol of resistance and rebellion at a time of Black Lives Matter and involving struggles.
But what do you say to those who say that this is, in fact, a gesture for movements like Black Lives Matter, that it's, you know, small steps that better late than never?
Well, but that would be my point, that Black Lives Matter certainly represents an idea of a struggle that is still needing to be realized, and a fight that still needs to be won, and is looking for more than just gestures. I mean, I think the calls from Black Lives Matter and associated struggles is we want more than just a gesture. So I don't want a symbol that is, again, as you said in the intro, played to the offset by Andrew Jackson, who is also a slave trader and a genocidal, murderer of indigenous people. So we want something. We don't want simple gestures. We would want a material improvement on society when we see material conditions for Black people worsening by the day. And I think it's important to remember that one piece of the narrative that Harriet Tubman, that wasn't even included in your intro, is, as Du Bois wrote in his biography of John Brown, Harriet Tubman had attempted to join John Brown in his pre-Civil War militant uprising attempt to overthrow the state of slavery. So that's an aspect of that struggle and the tradition that we would want to uphold, particularly, again, as I say, at a time now when the descendants and the descendants rather of her struggle continue to see their conditions worsen day by day, relatively speaking. Yeah.
Tell us more about Harriet Tubman herself, for our international audience who is not, of course, familiar with African-American history. Her role, of course, in the Civil War was remarkable. And as you said yourself, she fought this oppressive system that eventually launched the American economy. Do you think that she would have wanted to become a symbol of this? Would she have agreed to this, her face being on the $20 bill?
Well, it's always hard to say. And the beauty of the use of symbol is that you don't have to worry about the person being represented to speak out in defense of what their politics were. And we see this happening all the time, which is why, for instance, I stand in protest, sometimes almost feeling alone in that, against the Dr. King Memorial, who would certainly have not wanted a memorial commemorating his life and work, while all that he was calling for in his struggle has been redirected or ignored or oppressed or omitted from even conversation about him. And this is what I think is the issue here. Now, what I think Harriet Tubman represents that is important to note is a moment in the struggle against slavery where the enslaved recognized that after the initial stages, obviously, of looking to escape individually, that there needed to be a collective redress to the situation of enslavement. So when we see Harriet Tubman returning to her captivity more than 19 times in an attempt to bring out more people, it was not just that she was an individual hero, which she was, but that she was emblematic of a time in history that speaks against the representation of that history in films like Django and elsewhere, where it was understood that there was not only a need to fight for the end of enslavement taken up by Africans themselves, but that it had to be a collective fight, that it wasn't about individual freedom, so to speak, but it was a need to end the institution collectively. And this is what I think we should take most from her work and her example, that if one of us is not free, none of us are free. And to the extent that we compare ourselves, relatively speaking, in a material sense to the rest of this United States and to the world, again, African-descended people, Black people in the United States are materially worsening or declining in material conditions almost on a daily basis. So again, I think if we look at the collective condition of Black people in this country, we would do well to be reminded of the example Harriet Tubman left us, that we have to do better to collectively struggle as in militant ways and in revolutionary ways to change the structures and institutions of this country.
Professor Ball, very interesting to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us there from Maryland in the United States. Professor Ball from Morgan State University joining us there.